out this morning, hopefully for a speedy recovery. Hope we get him back tomorrow. But last night, we finally got it. The moment we've all really been waiting for this college football season. We got the first initial college football playoff rankings. And every year, as much as we have discussion about it, the more frustrated we get of, each committee has looked so different. We still find ourselves watching on a Tuesday night just to see what it was going to look like. So, of course, throughout this morning, I want to get your reaction, 205-834-9450. How'd you feel about it? I know if you had YouTube TV, you probably necessarily didn't get a chance to watch the unveiling. Greg McElroy, our partner in crime, he was on the panel, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say at 7 o'clock. But we want to get your reaction to start things off of just what the first unveiling of the college football playoff rankings for 2025 and how they look, how they stand, the discussions that you may have heard last night of what teams are in, what teams have the inside track, what teams are on the outside looking in. But it's all encompassing. I think it's going to be fun how the month of November starts to play out. But to get to the college football playoff rankings, coming in at number 1, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I think, with the AP poll, you can have a discussion that the teams that are in the top 3, you can shuffle around the order. But I think a lot of people kind of had the conversation of, especially when we start going down the list of where teams are, is the committee taking into account, certain wins that you have at certain parts of the season, head to head obviously matters as we're starting to go down it. But right now, Ohio State sits at number 1. The Indiana Hoosiers come in at number 2. The Texas A&M Aggies at 3. The Alabama Crimson Tide sit at number 4. The Georgia Bulldogs at 5. At 6, the Ole Miss Rebels. 7, BYU Cougars. 8, Texas Tech Red Raiders. At 9, the Oregon Ducks. 10, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 11, Texas. 12, Oklahoma. 13, Utah. 14, Virginia. 15, Louisville. 16, the Vanderbilt Commodores. It's crazy that we're still saying that in 2025. At 17, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. 18, Miami. 19, USC. 20, Iowa. 21, Michigan. 22, Missouri. 23, Washington. 24, Pittsburgh. And 25, Tennessee. So I will put it like this. Again, when you hear these rankings and you hear these numbers, it's great. But then you have to take into an account how the playoff committee does their seeding. So, yes, the numbers that you hear is where you are in the college football playoff ranking, but we know the bracket looks a little bit different because this year, as opposed to last year, it's a little different. So the highest ranked teams are going to get that first round bye. So as it stands right now, if the college football playoff was being played tomorrow, this is what you would get. Ohio State would be the number 1 seed with a first round bye. Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, and Alabama 4. Now, this is where it's a little different because at this point, it's the highest ranked champions will get in. There's no guarantee they're going to get the first 4 seeds, the first 4 spots.
Yeah, that's done.
That is over with. You get an automatic spot. So that's where the game is going to be played. So again, Ohio State is number 1. They'd have a first round bye along with Indiana, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Alabama would take on the winner of the 5-12 matchup. And right now that sits as the Georgia Bulldogs and the Memphis Tigers, who would get into that 12 spot as the highest ranked group of 5 champion.
About that. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
We'll circle back to that conversation because there's going to be some conversations. We got to sit down and have some. Say, hey, committee, let's talk about this. But as it sits right now, Alabama as the number 4 seed would take on the winner of the first round between Georgia and Memphis in the 5-12 matchup. The number 1 seed, Ohio State, would take on the winner of the 8-9 matchup, which would be number 8, Texas Tech Red Raiders, and the number 9 Oregon Ducks. Texas A&M at 3 would have the winner of the 6-11 matchup, which would be the Ole Miss Rebels and the Virginia Cavaliers. Right now, Virginia is the number 1 team in the ACC. So they have an automatic spot, but seeding is at 11. And then Indiana, who, again, has the first round bye. And I think technically they are the conference leader of the Big Ten.
They are. They have more conference wins at the moment.
Right.
So
at the moment, they have more conference wins. But who would have thought the Big Ten championship was going to determine exactly if you're the number 1, 2, that you're the number 1 team, or you're going to fall a little bit short, fall a little bit lower. But Indiana right now, the 2 spot will take on the winner of the 10-7 matchup, which would be the BYU Cougars and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So I guess I know they won't be able to play that game on a Sunday. That'd be
probably not. No.
That's going to be an interesting kind of matchup. But initially, this is what the 12-team college football playoff bracket would look like if it were played today. If you had the games on this weekend, this is what it would look like. But overall, again, I think this committee. Well, the discussion is strength of schedule is now a major criteria. Strength of record is a major criteria. And when you look at the initial rankings, I think the top 3 teams, they are solidified. Now, you can have an argument for each team at the top 3 that could be the number 1 seed, because if you look at Texas A&M, that win over Notre Dame, going to Notre Dame and winning, holds a lot of weight. And the conversation on the panel yesterday between, Joey Galloway, Greg McElroy, Boogie McFarland, and Reese Davis was, if you look analytically, Texas A&M would be the number 1 team.
Correct, right, yeah.
But again, it's all about when they played these certain teams at that time. But that win that they had in South Bend over Notre Dame carries a ton of weight now, because you can look and say, hey, we've beaten a team that is a playoff team right now. Indiana sits at number 2, and the win against Oregon and the way they went about it, if you're going strictly on eye test, it's hard not to say that Indiana looks like the best team in college football right now. They have an argument for it. And then Ohio State, it's kind of one of those things where, okay, we've handled everybody on our schedule that we've needed to. It's, okay, the Texas win in week 1 obviously doesn't necessarily, well, I say it doesn't carry a lot of weight, but it does. But it still feels as though Ohio State hasn't been tested. So eye test wise, it's, they could be the best team, but have we seen them play a team worthy enough at that level to make it just clear as day that they are the number 1 team?
This is probably the one thing I think that the committee got wrong. For the most part, these rankings I think are fairly spot on. Yeah, I could quibble with, I feel like maybe Georgia Tech should be maybe slightly higher. Miami probably should be higher too. Maybe Texas should be lower, but I'm not talking like, all right, at 11, I think maybe they're like 14 or 15. So it's not all that different. Maybe Miami should probably be in that same range, 14, 15, 16 instead of 18. So it's not all that different to me. But I think having Ohio State number 1 is probably the one thing at the top. At the bottom, again, we'll get back to Memphis in a minute. But I think you can make better arguments for having Indiana and Texas A&M at the number 1 spot. It just feels like they kind of split the difference and just put Ohio State there, because if you want to go by numbers, Texas A&M probably should be there. If you want to go by what you've seen in the beatdowns that Indiana has put on, okay, yeah, they should probably be number 1. Well, and maybe to give the committee a little bit of credit, maybe they're like, we're doing both. We're looking at analytics and using the eye test. So if that's the case, all right, well, instead of just going by one who we put as number 1, we'll look at both, and it's kind of splitting the difference because Ohio State has put it on some people. Their best win, I guess, technically is Texas, but that Texas is definitely not who they are right now. It might be Washington at the moment, I guess. So it's not overall, as much as it is kind of weird to see it, we know ultimately it is going to work itself out. That's one thing that I like having and seeing Joey Galloway up there, because he's like, there's no point in getting upset because it's all going to work out. So, okay, fine. So Ohio State's number 1. Okay, you'd have them. It's not like you would have them 11 and they put them at 1. Whoa, okay, what are we doing? They're no worse than 3rd, and if they handle their business, they will have a date with most likely Indiana or someone else. I mean, Indiana doesn't handle their business. They won't be there, so you don't ultimately have to worry about it. So it's all going to work out.
It is. And then we kind of look at the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That group of it's the SEC and the Big 12. Simple as that, because it's going to, BYU and Texas Tech play this weekend. So we're going to see that head-to-head matchup. And now those question marks start to happen because we're going to start to see some attrition with this top 25 because there are going to be top 25 matchups in November as we continue down the schedule. Alabama comes in at number 4. I think they have a fair argument to say that they are the best one-loss team in the nation. And whether that's eye test or analytics, their schedule, especially when we were going by the AP polls, there was a 4-week stretch where they were playing nothing but ranked teams, and they found ways to win the football game.
Absolutely. Or if you just want to go by resume, while they may have the worst loss, they have the best win. Of the teams that are at least right in here, and now granted, I know BYU is undefeated, but if we're looking at the one-loss teams, everyone in that one-loss area, they have a loss that they can kind of justify. Alabama kind of really can't.
Right.
But Alabama's best thing on their resume is that win over Georgia. And this is also why, now granted, with Notre Dame sitting there as the best 6-2 team, that may be just a slightly high for me, but also I'm not going to quibble over it too much. But I do think that this is why I've felt that Notre Dame probably won't make the playoff, because the best thing on their resume, not their best win, but the best thing on their resume is a close loss to Miami.
Yeah.
And so if the best thing on your resume is a loss, that to me is like, if we're looking at tiebreaker, I'm going to pull you out from that. So now they're sitting at 10. They are in right now. They went out. I personally, I don't know if they make it. If they end up inning in, okay, fine. But with Notre Dame, the best thing on their resume right now, even though, yes, they have a win over USC, I think is a close loss to Miami, which is really the thing that's keeping Miami in, is that, hey, we got the win over that. But Alabama, even though they do have probably the worst loss in maybe all of the top 25, they have the best win. So it's like, okay, yeah, cool, fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Put them right there. Makes sense.
And this committee honors the head-to-head matchups because they have Alabama ahead of Georgia.
Mostly.
Which, with Alabama defeating Georgia, Alabama has that spot. And then Georgia, who's beaten Ole Miss, sits at a spot right above them as well. BYU undefeated. Texas Tech has that one loss. Oregon with that one loss to Indiana. And I think they're probably in the unique spot of they are in control of their own destiny. As long as they continue to win, they're going to be fine. But it still feels as though Oregon's getting that you've done it so many times that it's hard not to believe in you because you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot. But they have before. But I think, they have USC coming up. Washington coming up. So they can bolster up that resume. And I thought they brought up a great point when discussing what's their biggest win up until this point. And Greg it's a 5-3 Northwestern. And it's okay, yeah. And then you go back to when they beat Penn State. At the time, that was looked at as a monumental win, but we've seen how Penn State's season has continued to trend downward. So it's okay, Oregon's kind of in that spot of, well, we've handled everything we've needed to besides that one blip to Indiana, who is the number 2 team in the nation, but we can't really fault who's on our schedule.
And we can't help that we beat Penn State so bad that they fell apart, really, because that's one thing that listening to a friend of Mac and Q, Josh Pate, he says that he will continue and always give Oregon credit for that Penn State win, because on the flip side of that, if you tell me if Penn State gets the win over Oregon, they're not going to – do you think they're going to lose the next 2? You think James Franklin's fired at that point? No, probably not. The loss caused Penn State to spiral, but he's still going to give them credit for that. And I see where that's coming from. But also with that, going back to Jolie Galloway, it's all going to take care of itself because you've got 3, as it stands right now, ranked teams on your schedule ahead of you if you're Oregon, 3 of your Final 4 at Iowa, Minnesota, USC, and then closing out the season at Washington. So if you handle your business, you're going to be in, and the committee can't keep you out if you're sitting there at 11-1.
Yeah, and we'll continue to break it down. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls as we react to the college football rankings, the first edition on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX. 6:20 here on Morning Jocks. Damian and John here with you as we just get your reaction on the unveiling of the first college football playoff rankings last night, as Ohio State comes in at number 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide at 4, Georgia 5, Ole Miss 6, BYU 7, Texas Tech 8, 9 Oregon, 10 Notre Dame, 11 Texas, 12 Oklahoma, 13 Utah, 14 Virginia, and 15 Louisville, just to give you the top 15. And Texas and Oklahoma, for them, especially Oklahoma, when you look at the rest of their schedule, they have they're going to need some help a little bit, but also the wins that they could potentially get help their resume. They're going to help. You know, Texas has that head-to-head now. And the Texas team that we see now is completely different from what we saw in the close win against Kentucky on the road in overtime and also Mississippi State. But what we saw this past weekend handling their business against Vanderbilt, I'm not saying that Texas is back. I'm not necessarily saying that they are not looking like a playoff team right now. But it's almost for them in the situation of, good thing you got your losses out early. Now they're going to have a chance to really get some big wins. Them knocking off Texas A&M is going to be hard not to say that Texas is going to find themselves in the college football playoff.
Even with that loss, even if they were to lose to Georgia, I mean, they have 2 top 5 teams remaining, so they split. It's going to be pretty tough, especially you could have arguably as good as a win as Alabama if they were to also beat Georgia as well.
Yeah, and it's crazy that Texas A&M sits at the top spot in the SEC, and yet it feels as though the SEC race is still wide open. Not to say that Texas A&M hasn't done what they've needed to do, but it still feels as though the SEC is still up for grabs as far as, you know, they're going to get more than one team to be an automatic qualifier, but just as far as getting in that championship game and that championship slot, it feels as though it's more – if you're Texas A&M, you can afford a loss, but 2, you start to raise some question marks, because then it becomes, who did you lose to in the month? Because you lost in the month of November, those losses are starting to get a little bit magnified. But you're going to have, I don't know if, and now the Notre Dame win is going to look more impressive as long as Notre Dame continues to win. It's going to help you out in the long run. But I just think as we come out, you know, again, it's the first one. This is the first one. It's going to iron itself out as we get deeper and deeper into November. But let's go to the JOX text line, 205-834-9450. And Brian from Hoover, he says, I feel as though if you're undefeated like BYU, you should be above teams you should be above the teams that have a loss. It's fair, but I think with this committee, not all schedules are created equal. So right now, if you're looking, so like for Indiana, for example, you can say that they don't have necessarily a quote, like the most impressive win they have is Oregon. They beat them by 10. But then you see they only beat Iowa 20-15. But outside of that, they've blown everybody out. So when you have the conversation of game control, Indiana's handled their business like they needed to. BYU, I think it's more of the Big 12 as a whole. Where do we see the Big 12 right now? Because I think if you look at the top of it, they beat Utah. Their schedule isn't necessarily going to help them, but if they continue to win, it eliminates all question. Now they might be seeded a little bit different, but they're going to find themselves in as long as they continue to win. But I think the Big 12 is kind of top-heavy a little bit, as opposed to just what the committee, or at least what we see week to week from the SEC, where we're watching these top 15 to 20 teams all play each other, and how much does a loss necessarily knock you down, and where do you lose to these teams, I think is a little bit different. It's just hard because the Big Ten and the SEC, one, they have the most competitive conferences. they have the best teams within within these conferences. So it's okay. Now the SEC, are we going to get 4 teams or are we going to get 5 teams in? Because I do think that you're going to have a conversation where there may be a 3-loss team in the SEC and a 2-loss team in the Big 12 or the ACC that's going to be on the outside looking in of, well, we're going through this schedule the way that we are. And if our 3 losses come to, the Georgias of the world, the Ole Misses and Alabamas, how can we be not? Like Missouri's biggest thing is it's hard not to look at what they've done, but the losses that they have, it's like, oh, can you really fault them for it? Because you have a close loss to an Alabama team who sits at number 4 right now. You're in a dogfight with Auburn. You ended up winning that ball game. But you're kind of in no man's land because it's, okay, well, outside of that, what more can we do? What more can we do? Because, again, you're going to get into situations where teams are going to knock each other out. Like, we're going to see the Alabama and Oklahoma matchup. We're going to see that happen. We're going to see Georgia and Texas. We're going to see Texas and Texas A&M. So, at least in the SEC, you're going to start ironing some things out and figuring out what the pecking order is going to look like. I think the ACC is kind of screwed itself because Miami hasn't the 2-loss Miami, the 1 loss to Georgia Tech has. I mean, Virginia is sitting at the top spot in the ACC, and they're kind of holding everything. They're holding all the cards in their hand because it's, okay, as long as we win, we're going to be fine. But then you have the conversations of, Pitt, because Pitt is playing, I'm pretty sure they're playing Georgia Tech. I mean, they're playing Notre Dame. They're playing
they do have Georgia Tech.
They have Georgia Tech. So they can cause some turmoil and then mess around and find themselves in a conversation of, hey, the top 25, you look at our record against them and then look at the ACC as a whole. It's just it's a log jam at the top.
And they end the season with Miami.
Right. Yeah. So, if you're Pittsburgh, you're saying, okay, yeah, we may be 24, but who can say in 3 weeks that we're not looked at as we're going to the ACC championship and our 1 loss is going to come, early. Our loss came so early in the season that once the college football playoff rankings came out, we've handled everything that we need to do. So again, it's the first one, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Let's continue on the JOX text line 205-834-9450. Goose texts in, he says, "Morning, fellas. Nothing too dramatic last night, but if we've learned anything from the ACC replay review, transparency is everything. Instead of an hour-long show to reveal, they should do a broadcast as the committee hashes things out and votes. If you can't say something or vote a certain way with eyes on you, you shouldn't be doing it that way. More important, we move forward, and there's bound to be some more controversy."
In theory, I don't mind that, but also, how many of you are out here watching C-SPAN? I mean, okay, yeah, you could have a camera on the committee and say, all right, let's figure out all these discussions, but are you actually going to sit there and watch? Because they don't discuss and decide this in an hour. It takes them, most of Sunday to do this. And I don't know about you, but as much as I want to know this, I ain't giving them my Sunday to watch this. Well, what if you're in the NFL? What if you're spending all day Saturday watching college? You want to at least spend some time with your family. No, I get what you're saying, but also no.
And here's where, again, I completely understand. Joseph texted in. He says the only head-to-head matters when you played them recently. Notre Dame 8 spots ahead of Miami is ridiculous.
Right, and honestly, that's mostly the way it should be. It's always been in the bylaws. It's just people just assume that because head-to-head is written in the bylaws that's the trump card. No, they said that they'll rank teams based on a number of factors, including strength of schedule, whatever like that. Mm-hmm. But what they say is head-to-head comes into play when teams are tied. So if, say by chance, last year, if Northern Illinois had continued to win after upsetting Notre Dame, should they have been in those rankings? And let alone should they have been higher than Notre Dame? No,
right.
We don't know, because just because they beat them doesn't mean that they need to constantly stay up there. It's only when you think two teams are close that, okay, should we actually look and consider that now? We shouldn't always vote because they won. That doesn't mean that they're they won the game. That doesn't mean that they're the better team. That doesn't mean that they should be ranked higher. And I get it, yeah, in the moment and looking at and right now, okay, we all we have to go on is just a couple of these things, and we see that Alabama and Georgia are. We think they're relatively close. Okay, at that point, yeah, we're gonna look at the tiebreaker for that. But if it were, say, Alabama and Texas Tech, I mean, I know they haven't played, but they are a good bit away. Like if we're talking about 4 versus 8, or even say Alabama and Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alabama is, according to the committee, leaps and bounds above Virginia, whereas Virginia has one loss too. Georgia Tech has one loss too, but they're sitting at 17.
Yep. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls on the other side. And we also have some coaching news. Have the odds for the next Auburn coach change? Who is the leader in the clubhouse on that? We'll continue on the other side. Keep it locked right here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Damian Mitchell alongside John Say Bear. Of course, we discussed the college football playoff rankings and been getting some feedback on that. We'll continue that conversation here, but we also we know the big elephant in the room. Auburn fires Hugh Freeze, and the search for the next head coach is on. Also, remember, Auburn plays Saturday. They've got Vanderbilt Saturday. So let's not forget in all of this that the football is still being played in the month of November, and DJ Durkin, the interim head coach for now, of course, defensive coordinator, he said during the press conference on Monday that he was going to continue to call the defense while also trying to do the head coaching duties. And again, it could be a live interview for the job as he continues through November. But right now, according to Bet Online, we saw a little bit of change at the top spot. I think opened up a couple days ago. We saw Kenny Dillingham's name as the favorite to land that Auburn job, but that has changed. Yesterday, according to Bet Online, John Summerall right now is plus 150 to be the head coach of the Auburn Tigers in 2026. Followed that by DJ Durkin. Again, he's the defensive coordinator right now. He has head coaching experience, and he knows the squad. And coming in, which I think is kind of a shock, and third is James Franklin plus 400. Me personally, I've never really been a James Franklin guy. I've never really rocked with him for real. But when you look at his resume, it speaks for itself. It's very Brian Kelly-ish, where he's won at places that you wouldn't necessarily think. I mean, the man was in the SEC. He had Vanderbilt winning 9 games. Just leave it there. Like, he had Vanderbilt winning 9 games.
Enough. He should have a statue in Nashville. Yes.
Right. Outside of Clark Lee, can't really get too far down the list of saying, some of the best coaches that Vanderbilt's had. I know his tenure was short, but he ended up having success there. Kenny Dillingham coming in plus 900, Brent Key plus 1,200, and a coach that is not coaching anymore, but still has that itch, Jimbo Fisher, coming in at plus 1,200. To me personally, I think John Summerall would be a perfect fit. I think it would work. Selfishly, I'll love Alex Golesh. I want Alex Golesh to get every job I want him to have that Matt Campbell interview or process when any job opens up. I need to at least hear his name because of what he's done down there in South Florida. And again, now if you look at the way the G5 is set up, he could find a way to put USF in the college football playoff because again that group of 5, the highest ranked group of 5 team, does get that number 12 spot. So again, just some news. I guess you'd say news, but some change there as far as the odds for the next head coaching position there at Auburn, with John Summerall being the leader of the clubhouse at plus 150. But we'll continue discussing college football playoff rankings that were unveiled last night, the first ones of the season. And we'll continue to get your reaction, 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's talk to our buddy Larry, who's on the road, wants to talk with us this morning. What's going on this morning, Larry?
Hey, guys. Enjoy the show every day. Just want to say I didn't get to see the show last night. I went to sleep early, but whatever. In reference to the SEC, the Big Ten, how many schools got out? I mean, I don't know if y'all mentioned that shit on the program. And then number 2, I guess the point I'm making is it not always based on reference to the SEC? Like you said, that if it was played right now, Alabama would probably, if they won, they'd play Georgia. Is it not amazing how they always try to get the SEC schools? Am I thinking crazy, or do y'all understand what I'm asking? They want us to. They don't want to see a Final Four of SEC. I mean, that's just impossible based on the format that they use. But I just wanted to throw that out on the table, guys. Get your opinion, and love the show, guys. Thank you.
I see what you're saying, but also I don't think this is the way the rankings are going to finish. Mm-hmm. Some of the teams are going to play. It's a snapshot of how it is right now. And yes, if it was played today, and you project out, especially in the quarterfinal or the early rounds, if chalk holds, Georgia would be facing Alabama and Ole Miss would be facing Texas A&M. So I get what you're saying, in that it seems like they're trying to limit the number of SEC teams on making sure they play each other and guaranteeing that only one gets in as opposed to kind of adjusting it. But also, I don't think it's going to play out exactly like this. I mean, we have Texas and Texas A&M in a couple of weeks. Texas also takes on Georgia, Alabama. Well, I mean, they're not going to. They'll have Oklahoma. They'll face a little bit of challenge. So I think some things are going to shift and jostle a little bit. But one thing we do know, for some reason, somehow, Memphis is going to make the field because
we gotta make room for the G5.
Why?
And I'm with you.
Okay, well, hold on. I'm okay with them being in the playoff. I don't have an issue with them saying, hey, we're going to save a spot for you. In theory, I don't mind that. But when you're telling me that the 5 highest ranked champs are going to be in there, okay, cool. But last I saw, there are only 4. So at that point, I'm sorry, you failed to meet the criteria. Therefore, I'm sorry, at this point, we're not including the group of 5 or group of 6. I guess because Pac-12, I guess would count too. Now that being said, if I'm the committee, make them 25.
Mm-hmm.
At least if you're going to put them in there, at least put them. Sorry, Tennessee, but if you want them included in this playoff, you by your own rules, you got to be a ranked conference. Just put them at 25. That's fine. I'm pretty sure that's ultimately may happen. Now, granted, I know South Florida very well could end up there. Memphis, there's still some jostling that because a couple of these teams will have to play each other. So if one of them runs the table, ends up 12-1, they'll probably be in the low 20s. I think that will happen by default. And honestly, I do think because it is just such a bad look to have for ESPN to have their graphic. So here's your highest ranked teams and champs, and Memphis right there just says NR. And Reese is going to tell us that although they keep on ranking teams until they get to somewhere. Really?
Right.
Which.
So you're telling me if Tennessee continues to win, Pitt continues to win, they're going to replace teams that are above them. What are you going to do with the teams that are behind them, even though they're winning? And I'm with you. And I thought about this even when they were unveiling just the new criteria of how the college football playoff rankings were going to be. I even said in some years, if the G5 is not ranked, they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff discussion.
And it's not for them. If the ACC were like that, if they were all to keep cannibalizing themselves and your two teams in your conference championship have 4 losses, I'm fine with them not being leave them out too. It's not a thing against the non-power schools. If by some chance the SEC is that way as well, if every team has at least 4 losses, I'm fine with leaving them out because at that point, all right, you've probably shown that y'all ain't some of the 12 best teams out there. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
This isn't us dumping on the group of 5, the group of 6, but you got to at least come on. That's why roller coasters have those that have the sign out there. You must be at least this tall to ride the ride. You got to at least have a ranking in front of you if you're going to put in there. Come on.
And again, no shot at Memphis, but you get that 12 spot, you're going to face. You got to go to Athens to play in a college football playoff game.
That's your reward,
right?
Okay, fine. And maybe the committee's making a statement look, we got to have one of you in here so when you do this. But if y'all had your own playoff, you wouldn't have to deal with this.
Wouldn't have to.
Right? We can maybe help subsidize it or something, but one of y'all is going to get some money and have to be a sacrificial lamb. Now, again, this is no shot in going against the non-power conferences because last year Boise definitely deserved to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I know the seedings were a little bit different last year, but even still, I don't know if they deserved the bye, but they were definitely one of the teams that warranted inclusion in this playoff. Right now, as it stands, I don't think a non-power school warrants that, especially looking at how dense and how close basically 10 through 18 is.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, no shot at Memphis, but what's your – because of what we judge the other teams on that are in the college football playoff, strength of record, strength of schedule, what's your biggest win in regards to all of this? Can you truly justify that? Okay, yeah, say Memphis or, Tulane. Well, Tulane after if they didn't lose to UTSA would have another conversation. But we saw Tulane hit the road to play Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi, and they got beat by 40. And it's okay, if this is the best team in the G5, it's not going to be pretty if they match up in the college football playoff if this is the result that we're going to get. So I'm with you. It's okay, I understand that we necessarily have to include them if they're the highest ranked conference champion, even though they're not ranked in the top 25. So
I guess I don't know what would have been more embarrassing, having NR next to Memphis or having them what they're actually ranked was according to the committee. Like what would they have been, like 40?
right.
Would they have been like honestly, you could have easily. I think if we'd have just put them at 25, people were like, okay, fine, they got to have that. Nobody would have said anything because you have the NR next to it. It's like, all right, like what are we doing? Because it may be more embarrassing if they showed up as like if they were 26, 27, 28. Okay, fine. I mean, I get that, but if they're in the 30s, the 40s or so,
Right.
all right, like okay,
Just make
now
them all
we may have to have a discussion again.
Yeah, make them at large, man. Just give them an at large spot if you think they're that good. But like you said, to initially not be in the rankings but still find themselves in the college football playoff bracket, it's just still kind of we'll figure it out. Again, it'll iron itself out as we continue through November. As we continue on Morning Jocks we'll continue with your reaction as well. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls on the other side. Keep it locked here on Jocks. 6:50 here on Morning Jocks. Damien and John here with you, getting you set for McElroy and Kublik in the morning, coming up at the top of the hour. Interested to hear Greg's thoughts as he was on the panel of the college football playoff rankings last night. And we continue with your reaction on the Courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. Joseph texts in and says, if the Pac-12 would have stayed together, the G5 team would have never had the chance to get in. Oregon would be their highest ranked team right now.
True, but to be fair, that they got poached. It's not like they wanted. They tried to stay together.
That money started talking.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, we got you. Come on over here. And I mean, they are the reigning Big Ten champions too. So I guess the getting's good on the on the Big Ten side, the historic Big Ten with Oregon and
maybe Utah, because Utah I think is the betting favorite to win the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, they are. Jason texts in. He says, sounds like they need to change the name from the CFP to the CFI, the College Football Invitational.
What are you, Matt McLaren? That's one thing, to be fair, Matt McLaren always said, like, this isn't a playoff because there's no there's no set criteria for you to automatically get in. Like, just go and win these games or do this or that. You're invited, so it should be the invitation. He's always said that.
Jamie texts in and says, the hypocrisy is astounding. If things were done right, Bama has the toughest schedule. They should be at least 2. Really think they should be number 1. Don't give a beep, beep, beep about what anyone thinks. Hey, roll tide. Somebody else takes in and says, you shouldn't get punished for losses at the end of the season based on logic of early losses have no consequences.
You probably shouldn't, but you're also supposed to be playing your best football at that time, too.
Right.
And we can say that. This may be an analytics versus eye test kind of thing. We can say that and want to think that way, but human nature is going to be kind of hard to actually do that. You see that in other sports. Well, if it's traveling or if it's a foul in the first quarter, it should be in the fourth quarter. Yeah, maybe it should be, but a lot more is on the line in the fourth quarter than there is in the first quarter. So I get what you're saying, and logically that makes sense, but it's just tough to enforce that.
Yeah. Don texts in. He says, good morning. As most of us have always said, don't do any conference tie-ins. Just take the 12 best teams. Well, then the SEC would have 7 teams in.
Kind of.
Every year, on a year-to-year basis, which, I mean, I ain't upset about it.
And judging by the rankings, or excuse me, the ratings, I feel like most of the nation would feel that way too. And that, like I mentioned before, that logically and in theory makes the most sense, but they also couldn't have got it done to have it this year or last year.
Mm-hmm.
They may have been able to get it done for next season, but would you have wanted to wait until that? I don't think we did. So they had to have it. For us to get this 12 team, it had to be this way.
Somebody takes in and says the G5 is like the little brother whose parents always make the older siblings include them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Memphis didn't ask for this, man. They can't help it. they ain't mad though.
And clearly they're willing to forgive that loss because their one loss is to UAB. Now it'd be quite interesting because Navy has Notre Dame this week. Navy still plays Memphis and South Florida, so there's a lot still to be determined. So, like I said, one team most likely may put themselves head and shoulders above the, and if you're the committee and really the American, you kind of hope we don't care who wins, just whoever wins be 12-1. Like, it don't matter who. Like we'll try not to rig it. If we got to rig it, we will. But just be 12-1.
Just
so
be 12-1.
Yeah, we ain't got to worry about that NR showing up next.
Yeah. Somebody else texts in and says, if the Florida State loss got us to where we are now, I am cool with 4. Yeah. Again, strength of record, strength of schedule. You look at what they've done against those ranked opponents. Alabama, they've done exactly what they've needed to do since that Florida State loss. And it only helps when you have Tennessee, who's in the top 20, who's a top 25 team in the CFP. Missouri, top 25 team. Georgia, ranked right below you. So you have 3, if not more, impressive wins than a lot of other teams can really show for it, especially with that one loss. Somebody takes in SEC undefeated and hypothetical once again. Well, there is one SEC team that is undefeated.
I know, yeah.
So it's not necessarily hypothetical. It's a fact. Texas A&M.
We synced it.
You're up. McElroy and Kublik.